Do you know how we got here?
No.
You don't remember sitting down?
No.
I reckon we've been here about 10 minutes at least.
Well, I've no knowledge of it. My eyes have started working now, and all I've seen the whole time I've been seeing anything at all is that.
And do you feel absolutely normal?
Not absolutely normal, no. Completely confused.
Confused?
Yes. You've never eaten anything, never tasted anything, never touched anything, never smelled anything. What right have you assumed you're alive?
But you are?
Well, apparently, yes. But I'd like to know what the hell's been going on.
Clive was an outstanding musician.
He would take his work very, very seriously. At the same time, he loved music so much that he just really threw himself into it totally.
Clive was a musician of enormous integrity.
He was the world's expert on lassos, one of the 3 or 4 great composers of the Renaissance.
And he also worked a great deal in contemporary music and was chorus master of the London Sinfonietta, which was Europe's foremost group.
Music flows out of him, whether he's singing or playing or conducting.
Clive Wearing, through a cruel twist of fortune, shows us how fundamental consciousness and memory are to our lives.
Well. No surprise. It's a smashing surprise. What have I seen you before?
I don't know. You've not seen me before?
No. This is the first time.
You pleased to see me?
Oh, Deborah. There's nobody else I care about in the world as a whole.
Oh, darling.
So how are you feeling this morning?
I'm conscious for the first time. It's the first time I've seen anybody talk.
You've not been conscious before? I've been here before this
I
morning.
haven't seen you before.
No, you haven't?
No. I've not seen anything at all before. I've been completely blind the whole time. No taste, so this is the first taste I've had.
That's the first coffee you've had?
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers. And how are you seeing things?
Absolutely normally. It's the first time.
Full colour?
Yes. I've never seen anything the whole time I've been ill. No black and white, nothing.
Do you remember me arriving?
No. I don't remember any arrivals, or I don't remember writing any of that. Nothing to do with me consciously. I mean, unconscious writing.
What are you doing here?
Well, I don't know, presumably paying patients, but I mean, that's the first time I've seen any cards.
Is it?
Yes.
Do you remember starting the game?
No.
It all started with a headache. Clive came home one day and said he had a very bad headache. The headache didn't lift, it didn't respond to analgesics. By the 4th day, he developed quite a high fever. And on the evening of the 4th day, for a little while, he forgot his daughter's name. By the 5th day, he was very delirious.
Clive suffered from viral encephalitis, which has led to the damage of the left and the right temporal lobes, plus a good portion of the left frontal lobe. Now, the temporal lobes contain a structure called the hippocampus, which we know is implicated in memory function, and in Clive it has almost certainly been completely destroyed in both sides of his brain. It's this that's primarily responsible for his severe memory impairment. In addition, the damage to his frontal lobes also causes a number of additional memory problems, which are manifest mostly in terms of him repeating himself a lot and generally showing highly emotional behaviour.
Clive's world now consists of a moment with no past to anchor it and no future to look ahead to. It is a blinkered moment. He sees what is right in front of him, but as soon as that information hits the brain, it fades. Nothing makes an impression, nothing registers. Everything goes in perfectly well because he has all his faculties, his intellect is virtually intact, and he perceives his world as you or I do. But as soon as he's perceived it and looked away, it's gone for him. So, it's a moment-to-moment consciousness, as it were, a time vacuum. And everything before that moment is completely void. And he feels as if he's awakening afresh the whole time.
Lovely hand you got. Beautiful, marvelous tickets. Fantastic. I'm awake for the first time. You're the first person I've seen.
It's very nice to meet you.
How long has it been?
It's been about 2.5 years now, Mr. Graham.
Maybe 1 night, 2.5 years long?
For 1 night.
So it would be nice. Not seen anything till now. Not even anything before this game. I've given the impression of being consciously awake. Not true.
He always thinks he's been awake for about 2 minutes. And that's why he looks at his watch all the time to record it. To record the fact, I've woken up. This is an important event, therefore I will write it down in my diary. So he writes, 11:54 a.m. I am now completely awake for the first time. And he underlines first time. Patience begins, because he's always playing patience. And the whole diary, every page, is a succession of entries saying almost the same thing, of first awakeness. And when he goes back and looks at his own entries, he doesn't acknowledge that they are genuine. He says he knows it's his handwriting, but as far as he's concerned, he was unconscious when he wrote them. So he quite often, he'll score out what he's written before. And so his life is an ever-repeating moment of first awakening. The strongest thing in his life, I believe, and his diaries bear that out, is his love for me. And that's absolutely raw. And each time I walk into that room, it is as if it's the first time he's seen me for years.
Good heavens above! Well, darling.
Hello. You surprised to see me?
The first time I've seen anybody at all. The first person I've seen.
You've not seen me before this morning?
No, I haven't.
I have been here. So how are you feeling this morning?
I'm conscious for the first time. It's the first time I've seen anybody at all.
You've not been conscious before? No. I've been here before this morning.
I haven't seen you before.
No, you haven't?
No. I've not seen anything at all before. I've been completely blind the whole time.
You don't remember me arriving at all?
No. No, I don't remember that you arrived in the mood at all.
No.
No idea at all.
But you know who I am? Or do you kiss all women like that?
You know I love you. I don't kiss anybody
Yes,
else.
I do know. I do know. You've written it all over your diary. Look. I bet you that if I look to see what you've written, you haven't mentioned me on that page.
No.
You've mentioned me on this page. My first thought, I adore Deborah for eternity.
That's right.
People's entries in the diary are rubbish. What does that mean?
I've no idea.
Did you write that?
I've never conscious knowledge of it at all, no. You're showing me now for the first time.
Is it your handwriting?
Yes, it is. But I know nothing about it at all.
So how do you think it got there?
I do. I presume the doctor don't know.
But you must...
No, I haven't. You listen to me, please, for heaven's sake. When I say no, I mean exactly that. I haven't seen the book at all till now.
No, all I'm saying...
No, that means I haven't seen it, I have no knowledge of it at all. That's all. There's no knowledge of that book at all. It's entirely new to me. But just use your intelligence, and let's have a comment with your intelligence.
But you've put... Who would put that?
I don't know, but no. Oh, for heaven's sake, use your intelligence, for heaven's sake. I haven't read this funny thing. Well, use your intelligence.
Clive gets extraordinarily angry. And who wouldn't? Because here you're not dealing with somebody who is demented, who is oblivious, who is gaga. You are dealing with a perfectly lucid, highly intelligent man who has been robbed of knowledge of his own life. And he feels deeply humiliated to be put in that position. Very, very frustrated that he can't grasp what's wrong with him, because even as you're telling him, he's forgetting the previous sentence.
A form of memory which probably distinguishes human beings perhaps from all other animals. He's lost the highest form of memory, the form of memory that enables you to relate yourself to the past and project yourself into the future. So, in a sense, he feels like a man adrift.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't heard a note of music, seen any music, have any contact with music at all.
You're still a very good conductor and a very, very good player. And you still sing with a beautiful voice.
Well, it's completely unknown to me.
Do you think if you sat down at the
I
organ...
dread to think. That's a private thing for me. I don't know what will happen, do I?
I know, because I've heard you. And you play beautifully, still.
I haven't heard a note of music.
1,
2, 3, 4.
Verum corpus,
You never forget how to ride a bicycle. Well, to Clive, singing, playing, sight reading, score reading music is as automatic as riding a bicycle or eating a meal or getting dressed. It's an ingrained skill. It's something you never forget. When Clive finishes a piece, the reason he almost always goes into that sort of belching, choking, fitting convulsion is because the moment the music stops, he's let down out of what was a sort of safety net for him. And suddenly he's lost again.
I can't remember now, I've forgotten.
Whatever the damage, however devastating the damage, his being, his centre, his soul, is absolutely functioning as it ever did. The very fact that he is so despairing, so much in anguish, so angry, so much in love with me, those are all real human passions. And he's showing them almost to the exclusion of everything else. All he shows us is raw human passion, straight from the heart of the mind.
For information on this program and others in the Annenberg CPB collection, call 1-800-LEARNER.
In 1985, Clive Wearing was stricken with viral encephalitis, leaving him with a profound memory deficit. Now, at the age of 60, he remains a prisoner of the present moment. He has very little memory of his life either before or after his illness. Because of concern for his safety, it has never been possible for Clive to live independently. He initially spent 7 years in a London hospital, 7 months in a general medical ward, and the rest of the time in an acute psychiatric ward. At the time, Britain had no long-term residential facilities for individuals with brain injury. In 1989, Ticehurst House Hospital, located in rural England, opened a specialized brain injury rehabilitation service. Clive moved there in 1992, and he lives there today. His wife, Deborah, visits him as often as possible. His memories of her and his feelings for her make these visits very emotional for them both.
I knew you were coming. I could see you through the window.
What we try to provide for Clive is a quiet, calm atmosphere, basically because he has no memory for events leading up to the current moment. Anything which really places a demand to know what's happening is upsetting for him. So he doesn't like going to places where he's unfamiliar. He doesn't really like visiting local towns or visiting places where there are lots of people, because for him, he will keep waking up, as he puts it, in these strange places, not knowing where he is. Whereas if he's here in the house or going for walks in the ground, then it's less demanding on his memory and he remains much calmer. We try to train the staff so that they don't ask Clive questions or begin discussions which put a load on his memory. For example, if you ask Clive, "How are you today?" There's an implicit demand on, "Well, I'm better today than I was yesterday." And he gets quite upset, and he will then start to talk about how he's been ill and how he can see and hear for the first time. So what we do is talk about the here and now. We ask him if he'd like a coffee. We enter into conversation, and Clive is still an excellent conversationalist, but it's all about current events. It's about the surroundings. So we might comment on all the sun shining out of the window, but we wouldn't say, "Oh, it's a nice day today," because that implies that he knows what day it is and he knows what the weather was like yesterday, and so on. So we have to try to be careful not to place those demands on his memory, because he then does become upset, and we want him to have a calm and content life.
Yeah. Oh, darling, I didn't know you were here. What have you got there?
I brought you some cakes.
Oh, I'm very kisses. Aren't ladies better than men?
I think so, yes. I'd go along with that.
Oh, good.
Would you like a Danish pastry?
It's a lovely idea.
Would you like one?
I would, actually.
Oh, good. We've got enough too, that's marvellous.
Yes, one each.
Good.
Are you all right?
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, they're rather large, aren't they?
And ladies separate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take the small one.
Oh, this is enormous. Very difficult to hold, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, have a serviette.
Oh, no, so do that.
Make it
Oh,
easier.
that sounds like a male name. Serviette who?
Serviette.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that characterises Clive's day is that he continually makes entries in his diary. Now, I say makes entries in his diary rather than keeps a diary, because in fact he's not keeping the diary. It is an inner compulsion to record the momentous event of waking up, because Clive's perception of his own condition is that because he has no memory whatsoever up to the current 10, 20 seconds, or maybe half a minute, depending on whether there have been distractors, any proactive interference. On the whole, his conscious working span memory is that current minute. So everything else behind the minute is blank. So everything until now is unknown and is void. So he uses the analogy of feeling as if he has just woken up. He says it's like just waking up for the first time. It's like just becoming conscious. It's as if I have been unconscious for however many years. And because this is a continual state, unless he's actually engaged on a conversation or on playing Patience of Solitaire, which he does a lot, or on playing the piano, or on taking a walk, unless his mind is elsewhere engaged, that is his experience of life, which is, oh, it's as if I've just woken up. Oh, you're the first person I've seen. Oh, I haven't, you know. And it's this amazement that from, I mean, can you imagine what would it be like if you were unconscious and you just came to, but you didn't have a lot of people around your bed saying, oh, you've been unconscious, you're in hospital. You've just got people eating a meal or watching TV as if nothing has happened. So he is habituated to that condition. He realizes that it's not surprising, but he uses that as an analogy for the experience of having no memory. It's as if I've just woken up. And because for him it is momentous, he has to write it down, and he has to write it down on any available surface. If the diary is in front of him, he will write it down there. He will record the time, 10:50 a.m., awake first time, and then he looks at the previous entry, which was 10:48 a.m., awake first time, and he says, no, I wasn't awake then, that wasn't me, that wasn't proper awakeness, this is the first real awakeness. So he goes through the diary, scoring out previous entries and underlining the current new entry, because this now is the real awakeness. All the previous awakenesses are unknown to me. So what he's saying something about ego, he's saying something about identity. He's saying, I know now, I know this moment now. I have no conscious recollection of those previous entries in my handwriting, though I acknowledge obviously they were me. Therefore, this is the real awakeness, and you have to take notice of that. So he'll underline it many times. And what's interesting is that over the years, as the diaries have stacked up, the diaries, the pages have become written in a more and more frenzied way, as if to say it's really important that you take notice of this. Just as a prisoner has to scratch the fact of his existence on the prison cell wall. I was here today, and I'm alive now. The world, you have to know this. That's what Clive is doing with his diary. And I think he's actually telling us something quite important about his perception of his condition. And he is the best eyewitness for his condition. Because
I've nothing to say about it. It's just like death. No thoughts of any kind, no dreams, no difference between day and night, no sight, no sound, no taste, no touch, no smell, exactly like death. No difference between day and night. No thoughts, nothing. No dreams, nothing at all. Any question you have is to answer, I don't know. There's nothing to say. No dreams, no sight, no sound, no taste, no touch, no smell, nothing at all, no thoughts, nothing.
Since how long ago?
For years, that's all I know. The whole time I've been ill, nothing at all, no thoughts, nothing.
What's it like now?
I can see. First time. First time I had any evidence I was alive.
And do you feel sort of normal now?
Yes. Since I sat down here, I don't remember sitting down here.
You don't remember sitting down?
No, I've never seen any human being now. I can see you fully over now. No touch, no smell, nothing at all.
Do you know what happened to you?
No.
Any idea?
No idea at all. Just like death.
Do you know how long you've been on
No
this?
idea, just lived like years, that's all.
Any idea what year you got ill?
No.
Have a guess.
Sometime in the 80s.
Sometime in the 80s, yes.
That's all I can say.
Early 80s, mid 80s, late
No idea,
80s?
I can't remember.
Guess?
Middle 80s.
Middle 80s, yeah. That's correct. And do you know what year it is now?
No.
Have a guess.
It was in the 90s, I suppose.
Yeah, how far in would you
No
say?
idea. Anything between 91 and 99, I don't know.
You've no feeling for that? No. But it's now 1998. Any idea what month it is? All right, have a look out the window.
No, it looks like about March, April, no, February, March, something like that.
It is April. You're right first time, yeah. So whose birthday is it next month?
Mine.
Yeah.
And my brother.
Any idea how old you'll be?
93,000.
No.
No?
How old do you think really?
21.
No. How old do you really think? How old do you feel?
22.
You feel 22, and how old do you think you are?
67.
No.
No?
Do you really think you're 67?
No idea what it is. No clue. It could be 90 or 100, or all I know about it. No difference in day and night, no dreams, nothing at all.
Do you think your hair's grey or white?
I've never seen it.
Never seen it?
But it's perfectly okay to guess.
Neuropsychologist Barbara Wilson has evaluated Clive's cognitive functions on 15 occasions since 1985.
This is another front door. stable door, front door, stable door, and a garage door. It's actually taken in Cambridge, that one. Okay. So one of those doors, Mr. Wearing, you saw just now. Just, you willing to have a guess?
No, not at all. I can't remember anything. It's just like being dead what I've had. I've never seen anything. You're just flipping over so fast I can't remember a thing.
Anyone not more familiar?
No. They're all equally different. No idea what I was looking at just now. It's a waste of time.
Which one's most especially?
Nothing at all, none of them. None of them at all. I can't remember what happened. My brain is not working enough.
Is there a page reflecting? Can you see?
Well, I think Clive Wearing is unique. I've never known another person so amnesic as Clive. And I've probably seen about 700 brain injured people, most of them with memory impairment. He's definitely the most amnesic person I've ever known. I think it's a very dramatic illustration, particularly for the public, of what it's like to be without memory. For example, this constant feeling that he's just woken up, or he hasn't tasted anything before. And even if he's seen his own writing in his diaries or videotapes of himself, he acknowledges that it's him on the video, or him conducting, or him writing, his handwriting, but he says he wasn't conscious then. And the fact that he must have been conscious to have written or conducted, he won't accept it. Now that's, I've never seen that in any other amnesic people, even people with a very dense amnesia. They don't say, I wasn't awake then, or I wasn't conscious then. So I feel that aspect of it is more than the memory impairment. I think it's also very striking how his musical skills are intact. As far as we know, we haven't been able to do a formal evaluation of his music. Some people interested in the neuropsychology of music have heard his tapes or seen videotapes of him playing. And it certainly seems that his musical skills have not been affected by the illness. He may now be a little rusty and a bit slower because he's not practiced so much. So I think what that tells us about the functioning of the brain is that what's been damaged in Clive are not the areas concerned with music. Another interesting aspect about his deficits now are that he has quite significant semantic memory impairments as well as episodic memory impairments. So not only does he forget things that have just happened or that he's just seen, but he has to some extent lost his general knowledge about things. He doesn't know, for example, if he sees a photograph of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, he thinks they might have been in his choir. And it's very hard for him to tell you in any detail much information, even things he knew prior to the illness. He's been virtually unable to learn anything since the onset of the illness. And again, that's different from some amnesic people. There have been reports of a few who, despite a very severe episodic memory, have managed to learn new vocabulary, learn new acronyms like AIDS or whatever. And Clive, by and large, hasn't learned anything. We were talking earlier today about the new information that he has acquired since the onset of his illness. And we think there might be 4 or 5 things. He will, if questioned appropriately, tell you about the reunification of Germany, about Hong Kong going back to China, about the breakup of the Soviet Union. Although if you ask him directly whether these things have happened, he'll say, I don't know. But the way we can find out that he does have some knowledge of that is because he says things like, has Hong Kong gone back to China yet, if you start talking about Hong Kong. But it's very, very tiny little bits of information, given the extent that he watches television and he does get a daily newspaper.
Magnetic resonance imaging scans of Clive's brain were done in England in 1991. Dr. Aaron Bigler of Brigham Young University recently examined and interpreted these scans to correlate them with Clive's cognitive abilities and deficits.
In this three-dimensional reconstruction of the brain from an MRI in this subject, what we've done is we've colorized the surface of the brain here in this flesh tone, and you can see the Sylvian fissure here very clearly. That divides the frontal lobe from the temporal lobe. And then we make this cut across at about this level here, and that allows us to look face-on to the subject in this view right here. This is the coronal view, and so there's the Sylvian fissure. There is a healthy temporal lobe down in this region right here. This is where the hippocampus and the amygdala reside. If we now look at Clive's scan, we see an extensive area of missing brain tissue. There is no brain tissue there. That is filled with cerebral spinal fluid. There's a small remnant of the superior temporal gyrus of the temporal lobe. Everything else is gone on the left side. On the right side, we have extensive wasting also of the mesial temporal lobe, but some of the lateral temporal lobe remains on the right side. It is of interest that he has retained the musical abilities that he has. Some musical abilities may be more dependent on right temporal function. Also notice the extensive enlargement of the ventricular system. These are the anterior horns of the lateral ventricle. Here's the size that they should appear. This very small area is a more normal size of this part of the lateral ventricles. The enlargement is associated with a massive loss of brain substance spread throughout the brain, not just the temporal and inferior frontal damage, but there's been some generalized loss of tissue. You can see that also when you look at a lateral view of the brain. Here is a normal lateral view or sagittal cut, and this structure right at midline is called the corpus callosum. And that's what a healthy corpus callosum looks like. This structure that wraps around right here, this is the fornix. And the fornix is a critical structure for the projection of memory information from the hippocampus. When we look here in Clive, we see that the corpus callosum is smaller in size, and there's only a little remnant of the fornix left. And that is because there is massive damage to the hippocampus, essentially complete wasting of the hippocampus on the left and almost complete wasting of the hippocampus on the right. Another view that we can look at to examine the type of damage present in this patient is the axial view. And this is taken in the horizontal plane where we cut across like this, and we're looking at the inferior part of the frontal lobe. And in this view right here, we have made that section. This is a normal subject, and pay particular attention to this region here, and this is the mesial part of the temporal lobe where all of the damage has occurred in Clive. The infection process spreads in this region, and if we now look at his scan, we can see the extensive damage on the left, as I mentioned. You see, this is the left side of the brain here. Extensive damage to the mesial part of the right, and then here is the inferior frontal damage in this patient. That's at the posterior part of the inferior frontal region. Now, this particular region of the brain is important in regulatory aspects of behavior. And some of the discontrol that this patient has, especially the emotional lability and changes that occur, are undoubtedly related to the damage at the temporal lobe level, but also this involvement at the inferior frontal region of the brain. What I'd like to do now is also show these various two-dimensional images now in three-dimensional space. And we can do that by taking each plane and putting it in the proper position with the other planes. And this is seen in this three-dimensional lattice work type array that is on the computer monitor now. And so these vertical lines here, they represent the coronal sections that have been cut across like this. These horizontal lines here represent the axial views that have been cut across like so. And then we also have the mid-sagittal view that's right at midline here, and see there's the nose and there's the mouth. And now we're going to rotate this and see, we'll rotate the head. You can see the ears out here. There's the nose, and here are the ears. Now we can cut back, and so we'll now cut back and expose the damage. And what we've done here is we've colorized the damage in red to show how extensive wasting has occurred in the temporal lobe region. And now we can rotate this image, and you'll see the extensive amount of pathology that is present. Again, the greatest amount of loss of tissue is on the left side in the left temporal region, but the damage is obviously bilaterally represented, as you can see here. And as we turn this around and look towards the back, again, this dark area here, that represents the wasting of the brain in the temporal lobe region. As we tilt the scan back, you can also see where the damage is in the inferior frontal region of the brain. And it's the combination of this inferior frontal damage and the bilateral temporal lobe damage that then represents the deficits that we see in this patient that are primarily manifested as a profound loss of any short-term memory and the emotional lability and discontrol evident.
I think when most people come across Clive for the first time, or if they would read his neuropsychological test scores, if they would look at his case history, they would assume that he has a virtually total loss of short-term memory, and because he has to live looked after 24 hours a day, they would assume that there's nothing much left of him inside. In fact, there's a lot left of him inside. There's a lot going on in there which tests are not sensitive to. He remains a very intelligent and lucid and articulate person, and the deficits he has are very specific, and they don't affect him in a general way. They affect particular kinds of memory function. Therefore, although he has no conscious memory of anything that's happened since he was ill, he has no episodic memory for the whole of his life. In any amount of testing, he's never managed to produce a single episodic memory. And in all his exposure to me, I've never witnessed any episodic memory. Nevertheless, he retains an intelligent semantic memory about his life. He knows that he worked for the BBC. He knows that he was a conductor. He knows that he's married to me. He knows that he has children from a prior marriage. He just doesn't know the details, and he can't bring those things to mind. Now, the interesting thing is that even though on a minute-to-minute basis he is forgetting everything that happens, he perceives the world around him as you or I would, but everything is erased immediately afterwards. And so moment to moment, he forgets exactly what's just happened. But he does show signs of implicit learning. For example, when he's been watching a video, the same video every day, he now anticipates what is going to happen on the video, although he has no conscious recollection of ever having seen the video before. In other words, learning is going on at a procedural level, at an implicit level, at a non-declarative level, and it is not open to his conscious inspection. He can't, if asked, do you know anything about it? No, never seen it before in my life. But it's there and he can use it, and that's what's helping him now, 13 years post-injury. It's helping him to function as an articulate and communicative human being. As a companion, we have very meaningful conversations, whereas for the first 7 years, We had 3 short loop tape conversations verbatim, repeated verbatim, with the same inflections, the same intonation, the same expressions on his face, so much so that after having the same conversation for 7 years, I couldn't hear what he was saying any longer. Now I can phone him up and say, do you know what happened at work today? And I can have a very ordinary conversation, and he responds, he listens, he follows the train of thought, and he gives me really good advice. Clive lives a life deep in the country, isolated from his past in a way. He's in a house that he never lived in before, and he has very few visitors now that he's no longer in London. But in fact, this suits him really well because he requires a constant environment, and he finds people, anyone who doesn't know how properly to talk to him could very easily make him ill at ease, because just the most simple phrase like, "Good morning, Clive, how are you?" contains about 4 big errors. First, a complete stranger, because everyone is a complete stranger other than close family and very old friends. So a complete stranger has just addressed him by his first name, Clive. Second, how are you? How does he know how he is? He's just woken up. It's as if he's just woken up. He has no idea how he is, or where he is, or what to answer. So immediately he's thrown by, "Hello, Clive, how are you?" So you see, the people who are around him have had to be sensitive to his perception of them and his perception of his existence. He has, I would say, in a strange way, he has got used to this existence, and he's made it very clear that he has a sense of time passing. He has a sense at some level of knowing what's going on because of the way he will abbreviate questions. When, for the first 7 or 8 years, he used to repeatedly ask me, "How long have I been ill? How long have I been ill?" That became condensed and condensed. As he said it faster and faster. "How long have I been ill? How long have I been ill? How long have I been..." Because it was such an urgent question, and also he knew I knew what the question was. And then it would just be, "How long?" It became abbreviated. The same way as the vanishing cues technique of helping an amnesic person relearn. He showed that he did have knowledge of having asked the question before. And if you asked him to guess the answer, he usually guessed the correct answer. He no longer asks those things. The urgent questions and the repetitive loop conversation have subsided, and he's gotten used to the place he lives in, the staff around him. Even though he doesn't know, if you say to him, "Where's the kitchen?" he'll say, "I don't know." If you say, "Clive, can you go and make a cup of tea?" he walks to the kitchen, opens the right cupboards and makes a cup of tea. So he has learned things, and he is at ease in this setting. The fact that Clive is now isolated from his previous life completely is not unmitigatingly bad, because he lives, amnesia is a state of suspended animation for him. He's in a kind of limbo, and if you are busy being in limbo, you don't actually want to go out to the movies and have friends around for supper. So living quietly in the country with a few nice nurses bringing you cups of coffee suits him fine. Our time together is now much better than it used to be. He doesn't repeat himself so much, he's not so angry, so we can enjoy the conversations we have on the phone or in person, because we can have meaningful conversations, and that is an enormous plus and improvement on things. He misses me very much. You only have to look at his diary, and every line it says, "Please come, darling, please come, darling," in quite frenzied handwriting. So you would think that there was a terrible underlying anguish there, and perhaps there is, but on the whole, what he presents to me is quite a philosophical acceptance that I have to be elsewhere. I have to be doing things. He knows I'm at work. I mean, just this morning, he looked at the clock at 8:30 in the morning, and he said to me, "Good heavens, you must have been up at the crack of dawn to get here by now," which tells you that he knows that I'm not from around here, that I must have had to make a journey to get to him. He knows that, you see, but he won't present that as information, but he will indicate that he knows certain things. And whenever I leave, he says, "Of course you must go, and you must get back before it gets dark," and that sort of thing. So, it works.